Washington versus Florida. Ooh, which state's gonna win? Okay, this isn't actually like which state's gonna win. These are my observations. So, you biscuits know that I live in Washington State because I have family here, and that is why. I love Washington, it's beautiful, but it's not really my weather scene. And I dislike the weather about 7 to 8 months out of the year. So, we've really investigated Florida over the last couple years as a possible place to live. Downside is I have no family there, so that keeps us kind of from moving. But we've investigated different parts of Florida, and I thought it'd be fun to compare it to Washington State. What's the difference between Washington and Florida? Ooh, I wrote down questions, and we're gonna answer them. Okay. Weather. Biscuits, it's gonna shock you to find out that Florida, for the most part, is warm. So I think this is a hard one. I like seasons. So I actually think Washington has really good weather for part of the year. I really enjoy it. And Florida, you get a lot of storms. You do get a lot of rain and humidity. So you gotta kind of think about like, what weather do you like? Do you like warm, humid days? You know, Washington never gets super warm by the coast. It's just always gonna be kind of like, even in the summer, it's mainly sweater weather. Occasionally you get a warm day, but you aren't having the humidity. So that can be a big thing. Maybe you love like lush, soft, humid, hot air on you. Florida has some beautiful weather throughout the year. And that's a tough one. Who wins? I think Florida has better weather because, hear me out, biscuits. I know some of you are going to be like, Rose, you crazy. I mean, that's true too. But I think that you can travel in the summer in Florida to get away from the heat. You can also just stay inside and stay in air conditioning. But if you go to the beach, it's actually a pretty nice temperature most of the year in Florida. And you can swim. Whereas I feel like Washington has a longer stretch of this really miserable weather, if I'm really honest. Like, you know, November to May is really, really miserable weather pretty much here. And Florida, I feel like, has a shorter window of weather that's not so great. And it's a little bit easier to hide inside in the air conditioning and go swimming in the afternoons, in the evenings, with a sunny day than it is to not see sun for like literally months on end. So I'm gonna say Florida wins on the weather on this one. Okay, I wrote this one down. Ooh, this is gonna be controversial. Ease of making friends. Okay, I've got to say it. And I feel like this whole video is just gonna get me in trouble. I think actually Florida is easier to make friends. I think Florida has a lot of transplants that are there for the nice sunny weather and the friendliness. I think Florida. Washington is notorious for being really insular and really difficult to make friends with people. And Florida's a little bit just more open, and I feel like weather really affects people's personalities. They're just gonna, you know, you can go to the beach and make friends. You can go to the playground and make friends a little bit easier. I feel like Florida's a little bit friendlier towards like families being friends with each other, with kids, you know? Washington's a little bit harder with that. Like Washington State, you maybe are gonna make friends with your kids' classmates' parents, maybe, but a lot of times you won't even do that. So I think Florida's a little bit better for easy making friends. Cost of living. Okay, so Florida has really expensive groceries and super expensive insurance for like cars and houses. So that's going to be a lot higher than Washington. Boy. I think, because I've talked to some real estate agents and looked at houses in Florida, I think that you can get a really nice lifestyle in Florida for like half of what it would cost in Washington State. And you could do it even more on a budget, but like, you know, without sacrificing a lot of stuff. So I think that Florida has a better cost of living, but I'm not factoring in like if you need flood insurance or hurricane stuff. That's different because I haven't priced that out. So it depends, like, are you living inland or are you living right on the coast? So I think that really depends. But I think overall, Florida is a little bit less expensive to live in, but the food's gonna cost you more. Okay, how easy is it to find a house? Washington versus Florida. Ooh. I feel like there's more houses for sale in Washington. They seem to pop up a whole lot. But Florida has lower cost of housing because it's easier for builders to build in Florida than it is in Washington State. Washington State really tries to prohibit a lot of building. The houses, I feel like, are smaller in Florida than they are in Washington State. Because you're inside so much in Washington State, the houses tend to be a little bit bigger, and it really, I'm really averaging out here. So like, you know, do your research for your neighborhoods. So you're probably going to have more houses for sale that are bigger in Washington State, but more options that you're more likely to close on in Florida. So I feel like they even each other out. Stuff to do for families. So this totally depends what part of Florida you're going to. Most of Western Washington isn't super great for like activities for kids per se, unless you're right around the Seattle Everett area. That has some good stuff, museums and aquariums and stuff. Orlando has a ton of stuff to do for kids and families. And you can get to Orlando pretty quickly from like St. Pete or from St. Augustine, which are places that we've visited and looked at. So I'm going to say Florida has more like museums and theme parks and giant, huge playgrounds for kids. But Washington has some really amazing like national parks and state parks and a lot more like just hiking and you know, for school. So they're better in that. So it depends on like how you're averaging that out. What are you looking for when you ask family friendly stuff? Driving. Okay, I hate to say this. Sorry, Florida. I think Washington's easier to drive in. Florida has crazy drivers. I don't know if they're being chased by a crocodile. No, alligator. Alligators, crocodiles are the other place. By an alligator. Or what, but Florida has some of the craziest drivers. I would say like Florida and Arizona are the most insane places to drive I've ever had to drive in the US. So I think it's easier to drive in Washington, and car insurance is less in Washington. Although Washington still has really high car insurance. Washington actually has higher car insurance than California. Isn't that crazy? You would think California, no. California has cheaper car insurance. So does Florida or Washington win? Okay, if I had family in both states, which state would I move to? I don't. Maybe Florida because it's got better weather. But it doesn't have seasons the way Washington does, and that's a real big one. So I don't know, Biscuits. I can't decide which state wins. You tell me in the comments, do you think Florida or Washington is a better spot to live in? Being that this is entirely subjective, so if I have offended you, I apologize. It's okay. We're just gossiping about states. Don't take it personal. Okay, Biscuits, I'm gonna see you over on Patreon. Come on over and come play with our self-care. Be a part of our fabulous self-care advent calendar on there.